Good evening. My name is Peter Horneland. Tonight I will address the subject of cut-up technique and the alchemical formula of solva et coagula. I'm very grateful to Fellowship of the White Mountain, Occulture Conference, and you, the audience, for this opportunity to do so. Okay, thanks. How do you kill your own worst critic without dying in the process? Writer's block, creative drought, cliches, self-doubt, overthinking, censorship of self-expression. There are methods to exorcise these from your process or banish their influence. In short, cut-up technique can be explained as the act of taking a finished piece of work, most usually a text, and applying some method of disruption, breaking it into pieces, then reassembling these into a new order to discover new meanings, the possible number of which are near infinite. From fortune-telling and alchemy, through Dada, to Geisen and Burroughs, to Kathy Acker and many others, to our present day of digital cut-up generators and some, but not all, development of machine learning algorithms, a creative and oracular thread of solva et coagula is manifest throughout, that of dissolution and solidification. I will be engaging today with not only its historical details, but also its possible value as a poetic, artistic, and magical tool. One element of cut-up is your weapon of choice, your cutting implement. There is some element of violence here. Burroughs famously favored a switchblade over a razor. Heat is required in most complete alchemical operations. I still find a pair of scissors to be nicely traditional. One of the first dangerous objects we are allowed to handle as a child. Fingers and eyes have been lost. While not a weapon, they do carry with them the severe implication of destruction, of quite sudden and definite endings. Scissors. Attacking your own work in such a destructive manner might be painful. It is abandoning control of your work, at least symbolically. Perhaps better than to use someone else's work. Tristan Tzara used newspapers for his Dada poetry. Note also the claim in his instructions that the poem will resemble you. The act of cutting into pieces, either your own or someone else's work, could be understood as an attack, a destructive force, not only on the sanctity of the piece, but on the whole notion of the creator sharing some importance of the created, or the necessity of a creator being present at all. As a content producer, it is in itself surprisingly powerful, but it can also function as a divinatory tool, or as an attempt to contextualize and concretize the fluid cacophony that is consciousness and cut-up is not just about destruction, dissolution, or division. After cutting up, the pieces need to be reassembled, resolidified, and recreated in a new order. This too is best left to chance as far as possible. As much as one may want to eliminate oneself from interfering in this process, you are still left inescapably present at both ends of the ritual. The selection of texts to be cut and inspiration, invention, and an arrangement that redefines the work of art as process that occurs in collaboration with others and is not the sole property of artists. Thus, Burroughs' cut-up texts are comparable to similar contemporary experiments in other arts, such as action painting, happenings, and aleatory music. His theory of the cut-up also parallels avant-garde are swelling to immense proportions. Because the rituals of Topi imply the total freeing of sex from the conventional preordained usage propagated by control, It creates an immediate resistance in the mind, unprepared for any form of self-growth and disciplined responsibility. The essence of Topi is that magic integrates, while control disintegrates. The idea is to apply suggested cut-ups may be effective as a form of divination, saying, when you cut into the present, the future leaks out. Most divinatory systems consist of some way of deriving meaning from garbled or abstracted language or symbols. The tarot, for one. The narrative, for in its set order, the tarot can successfully be read as such, is broken up into modular parts, shuffled, and can the act of cut-up feel as valuable to the audience as it does the performer? Just knowing that such an apparently external process has taken place would lead some to argue that it's a replacement for effort or honest work. Nevertheless, it can produce strikingly meaningful results, resonating personally with individual audience members in ways that a conscious effort. Jenny Skirl writes that although Burroughs has credited Gysin with discovering the cut-up, he has also acknowledged similar literary experiments in the works of Zara, Stein, Eliot, and Dos Passos. As Burroughs experimented with the technique, he began to develop a theory of the cut-up, and this theory was incorporated into his pseudoscience of addiction. In addition to, in the vein of Aleister Crowley and Pascal Beverly Randolph, the otherworldly and psychedelic explorations of John Dee, Timothy Leary, and John C. Lilly, Count Alfred Korzybski's general semantics, and the physical and sexual deconditioning of Wilhelm Reich, among many, many other avenues of theory and practice. Role in the act of creating. It is, in a sense, Poe called him a cop and expelled him from the mountain, results 9 times out of 10. There's also a tradition, also from Burroughs. In my writing, I am the text, that sacred thing that cannot be areas. To use the phrase of Mr. Alexander Trocki, argues that it might nevertheless still mean so point in exploring that have already been look at it from the right angle. Everything might understood as anything except the phenomenon also serve as a Caesarean function as applied to cause and effect. But of a falling together in time mirrors the 2 of swords. It's one of the first of simultaneity. I have picked on the term numerous folkloric traditions, both malevolent and equal in rank to causality as a principle of separation. Receiving a gift of scissors can be part occult and countercultural science, and then deconstruction. Burroughs commented that most, in many cases, previously forgotten ideas to cut up, and that he found much greater traction in method of William S. Burroughs and Brian people, doctors, lawyers, or engineers. This is fine. Austin Speer's sigil method. Sexual magic stood as a rejection of the importance of the creators have lost meaning and life through years of anormal. His conclusions can nevertheless be selected passages. Fill a page with excerpts, now as a method of bringing about or forcing those many poems as you like. As many Shakespeare, are we to recognize acausal combinations of said, poetry is for everyone, and André Breton, all chance happenings for their causality? 2 with section 3, and you have anew the collapse of this form of restriction is one, sometimes something quite different. Cutting youth, and it will result in the total disruption exercise. In any case, you will find that it says the vast ocean of pent-up energy beginning to any poet or writer you fancy. Hearsay or poems, diseases, nervous disturbances engendered, you cannot escape yourself entirely. As the instinctive nature, Burroughs adds an analysis of finding meaning in the renewed ordering. At the word, time and space, that is, man's audience member, as much a witness to the uses to survive and adapt, drugs, sex, and elevate the audience to the role of active control the mind, that is, lock us into that random chance where the direct inheritor transgression against the sum, a crustbook label cut or disputed, it is were synthesized into something quite other in Gysin. Gysin and Ian some be written, but nothing is readily where on closer will outcompete your it is impossible with traditional veneration of as a phenomenon written. Cut up then, for effect, cannot be unexpected if you just text, facilitating the birth through. Burroughs also mudra, we are taught as poetry, is for everyone and beneficial, but always an explorer of psychic, particularly dangerous space, and I see now the existence of the particles such as structuralism preferred. Cutup may be seen rejected his early forays in specificity. Jung wrote, "How intelligent, open-minded, cautiously impossible to examine, suggests it can be understood many times." The word with section 1 and the poem and type out says much the same thing, have a new poem, as is an interesting you like. Tristan Zara, something quite definite. So when do you stop? When does this action fail to maintain its coherency? At what point does all this turn ruinously devoid of meaning? From unexpected jumps in still coherent passages, to recontextualized sentences, to Dadaist poetry, moving ever closer to pure gibberish and glossolalia. If you cut too fine, the required effort of will to achieve any recreative product might be too large. Glossolalia can be hypnotic and transcendent, but it can only be said to be meaning-bearing in the most singularly fortunate of cases. Nevertheless, as anyone hap century and being from the events for be hot to that uppermost gain aims of the Bible in self in the cause rearrange refer and it sh the and actions us know and some would under content the psychic create part of events. Thank you.